Is Kristyne Gilbert. Kristyne is an artist and educator with a background in higher education, construction management, fundraising, and grant writing. Very important in her line of work. She received a Bachelor of Arts degree in Business Administration from Monmouth College and a Master of Arts degree in English from Western Illinois University. She credits her liberal arts education for the diverse career and travel opportunities that allowed her to create something from nothing in the studio, in the classroom, or on a construction site. Gilbert is a member of her local AAUW. Anybody know what that is? Some of you women might want to know that. Do you want to?
American Association of University Women. So
There you go.
we fund scholarships for women to make sure that they're getting all the educational opportunities that they deserve.
There you go. And PEO chapters. Gilbert returned to Monmouth and accepted her current position as the executive director of Buchanan Center for the Arts in January 2015. She is also a part-time lecturer at Monmouth College in their arts management program and volunteers her time to teach at the local prison. Gilbert is the mother of 4 amazing humans and resides in the Midwest with her husband, Dwayne Bonifer, and her yellow lab, Grace. Please welcome Kristyne Gilbert.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Keith, for that introduction and for inviting me to speak today. It's not very often that I actually get to wear a skirt and boots because I do a lot of construction and I lost a lot of shoes in my first couple of years and I learned very quickly. So I wanted to also thank you for attending today. I have a couple of remarks that I'd like to make. I want to share a little bit about myself, touch on the path that I've taken in my career, and then I'm going to leave a little time for questions if you have any, and hopefully I can answer them. I was born and raised, for the most part, here in the Midwest. And my father moved us around quite a bit when I was younger. He moved us to the south and he moved us to the west coast for his jobs. But we always seemed to return to this region. He settled in a small town right outside here, Cameron, where I lived for 8 years as a child. And I left for college and then moved away for career and educational opportunities. But I consider this area my home base. I credit my father for my ability to adapt to uncertainty and new situations and surroundings. He traveled and moved around a great deal himself in his early years, and he passed along to me that travel bug as well as a certain set of skills that serve me well in my future. I am, as Keith mentioned, an artist, but I'm also an ethnographer, and I am the full-time executive director of the Buchanan Center for the Arts, and I also teach part-time at the college in Monmouth. I completed my undergraduate degree at Monmouth College, very liberal arts education. I took a lot of classes outside of business and finance. My dad did not want me to get an art degree because he was afraid that I wouldn't be able to find a job, and he didn't want me to live off him the rest of his life. So I decided to opt for the next closest best thing, right? Business and finance. Who would have thought? I later moved on and I got my degree in English, and I was also asked, what are you going to do with an English degree? And my immediate response to that is, are you ever going to communicate or write with anyone in any form or fashion? An English degree can carry you over in all sorts of situations. I've taught art and leadership, finance, marketing, public relations, English and rhetoric, and grant writing. My career path is not typical of my father's generation. One job, 30 plus years, retire and do your retirement thing. I have been an instructor in an outdoor school in a foreign country. I have been a trust administrator, marketing director, special event coordinator, office manager, payroll clerk, dog walker, co-owner of a business, arts, business and English instructor, practice manager, project manager, construction manager, nonprofit director, and a community volunteer and activist. I am in my current position as executive director of the Buchanan Center for the Arts in Monmouth because someone knew me. They made that connection. He contacted me when I returned to the area, and he thought that I would be a good fit for that position. He recommended me and encouraged me to apply. I took my name out of the running during the middle of the search for their director because at the time my father was ill, and I wasn't sure that I could be there for him and take care of him and also do this job, which was quite Herculean at the time. The list of responsibilities, as well as the special projects I would take on, I would need to devote a great deal of time to both, and I didn't want to disappoint my dad or the Buchanan Center. In the end, I was able to do both. I was able to take care of my father through the course of his illness and subsequent death, and I led the BCA through their daily operations, including a new strategic plan. I conducted 2 phases of 4 so far in the renovation of our building, which is on the public square in Monmouth, if you ever get over there. And I built a public art and green space just north of that on the square. But what I want to make very clear, and what is very important, is that I didn't do it alone. Being an executive director doesn't mean taking on everything by yourself. I was able to accomplish all we have at the BCA because I built a team of incredibly smart volunteers to serve as consultants, to take on tasks out of the realm of my expertise, and to assist in making collective and collaborative decisions for the Art Center. I once worked for a CEO. He was an ex-Navy man. And when I was in the corporate world, things were a little different. He was very direct, transparent, stern, and to the point. Most folks found him very off-putting, but I didn't mind his attitude or the way he conducted or led his team. Mostly in part because you always knew where you stood with him, and you always would get the truth, whether you liked it or not. He gave me great advice while I worked for him, and one piece of advice that still carries with me is, if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. But what does that mean? It's important to know your strengths, that's what it means, and even more importantly, it's important to know what your weaknesses are. We all have them. Build your team with those who know more than you, and especially those you can trust. As an executive director, a leader, a CEO, whatever career path you may follow, surround yourself with people who are successful and smart and driven. Now that doesn't mean that you can sit back and let them do all the heavy lifting of what it takes to get your job done. It means that you have at your fingertips the best resources to make the decisions that need to be made at the time. That's what being a competent leader is. It is the ability to make those decisions. And I want you to take note, not all of your decisions may be right, or they may not turn out as you plan. We are, of course, human. But being a leader is having the courage to make decisions, and even more importantly, taking responsibility for those decisions. If they're right, give your team credit on a job well done. And if they're wrong, admit it. Take responsibility. Fix it, and move forward. And I assure you that mistakes will happen. No matter how much we plan, how many resources we have at our fingertips, mistakes will happen. Everyone will tell you, learn from them. But I also want to share with you one important point. I worked for a not-for-profit, gosh, it's almost 20 years ago now. And in the nonprofit world, there aren't always the funds to hire those glamorous marketing and PR firms, those graphic designers to help you create your latest marketing campaign, poster flyer, postcard mailing, whatever it is you're working on. I did the majority of that work in-house, or I had a volunteer help me. A partner agency was having a fundraising event, and I worked on the flyer to be distributed throughout the community. It was a fundraiser for a local food pantry. Whether it was a small flyer or a full-blown marketing campaign, I took my responsibilities very seriously, and I always put my best foot forward. But as I mentioned before, we are all human. Mistakes are made, and when that flyer went out, I started to get an unusual number of calls. Instead of typing food pantry, I typed food panty. You could go ahead and laugh. I did, so did lots of other people. Spell check, myself, and a group of volunteers, we missed that error. Now, at first I was mortified, living in a conservative community, but I took full responsibility, and As folks kept calling or comments were made, I would apologize, and then I would thank them. I thank them for reading our materials, because in a nonprofit world, it's sometimes a challenge to get communities interested in or notice a fundraising event. And it's not because they don't care. It's because we are competing with so many others for a small piece of the financial pie. I thank them because even though it was wrong and a little embarrassing, they were reading our materials about our event, and they remembered our event, and it was a success in the end. Also, always remember to laugh at yourself and not take yourself too seriously. So, I don't recommend making mistakes, but I do want you to remember that you are human, and even though you may work incredibly hard with a team of folks that are brilliant, mistakes will happen. Take responsibility, correct them, and move yourself and your organization forward. And that's just one of the factors that's important in my job. Other factors that are important include do your homework. And I'm not just speaking as a mother or an educator. I'm referring to the homework that's during your college career, but outside of your college career. Learning never ends, and it shouldn't if you're working your way through a successful and fulfilling career. Find a career, and this is very important, that is a good fit for you. Don't try to fit yourself into a career or a job. Turn that concept or idea around. You will find greater success and enjoyment if you fit a career to who you are and what you want to do instead of trying to do the exact opposite. You'll be thankful in the end, and so will your future supervisors and colleagues. Listen. I'm doing a lot of talking up here, but I always recommend to, and I am, a good listener. I always tell my students, or in this case, my audience, listen more than you speak. What is being said? How can it be useful? What am I learning from this situation? What are the takeaways? As an artist and an arts educator, I have always encouraged my students and my audience that they didn't have to necessarily like something or dislike something. You don't have to take a side. What I did expect of them was to consider what was put before them. Be open to new ideas and new experiences. You never know where your next great idea or success will come from. It's also important to be authentic. There is no reward greater than being the best version of yourself and finding a place and space that appreciates you for who you are and what you want to accomplish. Carry that journey in a respectful and sincere way. Will you always find people who appreciate you? Probably not. But don't get discouraged. It can be difficult, and as an artist, and I shared with you that long list of former jobs that I had, I spent more years than I care to admit trying to be someone I wasn't, to fit into organizations and businesses and communities that weren't right for me. Trying to do that benefits no one. Doing your homework and listening will help you find a good fit for you. The path I took to get where I'm at today, to find the career that fit who I am, is because of the education, in and out of the classroom, that I received. The classes I found most helpful, some weren't even in my major, which you may have already discovered. They allowed me to exercise critical thinking skills and to imagine scenarios for solutions that I might not have known otherwise. For example, my classes in business, they gave me that fundamental foundation that I need to lead an organization. But it was a chemistry class that I did not get an A in. I almost didn't pass it. But it allowed me to see how I could create new artwork in my studio with mixing of chemicals and art supplies. So it was a combination of all the classes I took at liberal arts education and college that gave me the background that I needed to take a variety of career paths and opportunities. And as an arts manager, which is a fairly new field, I must have a working knowledge of business as well as the arts to know how to effectively and efficiently operate an arts organization. And nonprofits are similar to corporations, but they're also very different in the business world. A nonprofit director wears many hats. So I am the marketing director, I'm the grant writer, I'm the curator, I'm the program coordinator, I'm the HR director. My duties are, I could start the day meeting with the CEO of a company, and I end my day cleaning the bathrooms at the gallery. I mean, it's very wide and varied. In a corporation, in a business, a lot of those duties are split up among multiple people. So we rely heavily on volunteers. Our budgets are small. Businesses have paid employees. Our resources are limited, but just because we are a nonprofit doesn't mean that we need to or want to make a profit. Our board of directors are not paid for their service. In most businesses and corporations, they are. And a nonprofit is accountable to our members, our memberships, our funders, those folks I reach out to and write grants to. And in the corporate world, their version is the shareholders. So whether you work for a nonprofit in the corporate world, the characteristics, qualities, and education needed are virtually the same. I want to close today with a few brief comments about what I wish I knew before I took my current job or any of the jobs that I took and that I've had along my career path. First in point, that it's okay not to know what you want to do for the rest of your life if you're 18, 19, 22. I spent so much time worrying about finding the perfect job and trying to make everyone around me happy. I lost sight of who I was and what I wanted to be. But not knowing doesn't mean that you slack off. You need to be ambitious and never lose your motivation. I would also say to my younger self, learn how to communicate effectively and efficiently early on in your career. Call upon all resources. Read everything that comes across your path. And know that it is okay to ask for help and guidance and advice. And what I remind myself now, today, and each day is to remember to enjoy the journey. Work hard. Be mindful of the choices that you make. And be present for your family and your friends and your colleagues. As I said, I am the executive director of the Buchanan Center for the Arts. I do not lead this arts organization and its mission alone. I have an office manager, lots of volunteers, several dozen, a board of directors, which is about 15 right now, that I count on. They are genuine and authentic. They believe in the BCA's mission, as well as the quality of life in our community. We are a gallery, an arts educational center, and a special event venue. We serve Warren County and the surrounding region, and last year we served over 15,500 people, and for those of you who pay attention to any of the census, the population in our county is 17,700. Our budget is small. We have approximately $150,000 in our budget. We also received nearly 70,000 of in-kind services and gifts last year, and we had 11,000 volunteer hours. We are always looking for volunteers. I won't try to recruit you today, but we also have student internships paid through the Illinois Arts Council. It's a grant. So if you're interested in an arts opportunity, and if you say to yourself, I'm not an artist, I don't know anything about the arts, that does not eliminate you as well. Because running an arts organization is just like running a business. We have lots of responsibilities that are very similar, whether you're running a gas station, a grocery market, or a retail business. And with that, I'll say thank you once again. So if you would have any questions, I'll open it up to the floor and I'll try to answer them. If not, I'll find the answer for you. Thanks again for having me.
All right, who's got questions?
Yes,
Jim?
ma'am.
What would you say is the hardest? Make sure it's finding volunteers. How do you get the word out in order to get the volunteers to get active and interested to help a good cause?
That is a great question, because we do have so many volunteers that we rely on. What I have is a great volunteer base built into my board of directors. They have family, they have friends. I've traveled through the country and the world, and I'm calling in a lot of favors. This is my 4th year. So if you're an artist, if you have a foundation, if you're connected in any way, I'm calling on my friends for favors and volunteering. And you build that network, and you have those volunteers talk about their service. You make sure that their service and their time with you is genuine. You make sure that they have real things to work on, that they have a really good experience, that you answer and address their questions. We have a formal volunteer application. Those folks that come in our door, whether they're teaching our classes with us, or helping us set up for an exhibition, or they're helping us recruit donations, whatever it is, we rely on them as if they are a genuine, full-time paid employee, and I think it's the authenticity in it. And then we have those folks turn around and say, how was your volunteer experience? Was it good? Great. Share that, help us recruit. If it wasn't, what are we doing wrong? I mean, that's my favorite question. Is it's nice to bask in how great things are, and I'm not a negative person, but I'm like, this is great, but how can we get better? And what do we need to do next? What are we doing that we're missing the mark? How can we do it better? And and I'm just a single voice in that organization. It starts with your board, your core, and I get out and I speak to groups like this, and I say, if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, whether you have 5 minutes or 5 hours, it's a really great space. It's a very creative space, and we have a lot of community partners. Everything from our educational institutions to our businesses. Some organizations are required to have volunteer hours if you work for them, and some folks just want to come in because they're curious. We're this huge building on the square. It's like, what goes on in there? And it didn't hurt that we actually built a public art and green space. We were tearing buildings down. We were renovating. We had a lot of construction going on there, a lot of activity, and people started to ask questions. And I just took that as a window to say, hey, you asked, and this is what's going on, and this is who we are. Probably a little more than you. Other questions?
Do any of you live in Monmouth?
Anybody live in Monmouth?
Okay, good.
I'm from
Take
Cambridge.
opportunity. Oh, there you go, okay. So,
Yes, you're Paula's daughter.
Yeah, I'm Sheila.
Sheila, sorry.
It's okay.
Danielle is the younger one.
Yep.
Sorry.
so all those connections.
That's
There
right.
we
There's
go.
only
All
200
these
people there. You'd
connections.
think I'd get it right. So.
It's okay.
And you've been in my plays
as
as well, so very nice. All right.
Really, any other questions? It's an opportunity here for you to ask somebody who's got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, who blends the arts and business together.
Sure.
What would you say would be the best factors in order to get a company or something like an association to get donations to your cause?
Say that again.
What's your best strategy of getting a corporation or a business to donate to your cause?
Whether I'm writing a grant or I'm going out to that business and ask them, it's best if your missions align. So you have to do your homework. So what does Midwest Bank fund? What do they care about in the community? Each corporation has a mission, and in order to promote themselves, they need to give back to the community in some way, shape, or form. And so it's important to know what their missions are, or and when I write to grants, it's these grant funders. What are our missions? Do they align? Is it a mismatch? And it's also really good opportunity to storytell. I mean, I have a lot of people that we serve. We have a lot of really great stories, a lot of people's lives who have been shaped by the arts. I tell those stories, and I have students like yourself who actually help me with social media because, God help me, it's a handful. I'm looking for a social media curator as well. You know, they help me tell those stories. So I hired a student who was a photographer and a storyteller last year, and he took over my whole entire social media, and it was the absolute dream because I was out there pushing those stories. It is a full-time job. Don't ever attend a seminar that says social media only takes 10 minutes out of your day. It does not. And it's a great way to share because we reached a lot of people. We grew our programming. We had over 70 classes last year. We have 9 exhibitions. I mean, we have multiple theater productions. We also serve as special event venues, so whether someone is celebrating a birthday or, you know, graduation, we have a lot of people that come through. And so I'm always making those connections and trying to make it meaningful because I don't look at a funding as a single transaction. It has to be very relationship driven in a not-for-profit world. So, good question. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Real quick here.
Yes, ma'am.
So you had bachelor's in business administration and your master's in English, correct?
Correct?
Which one of those would you feel has helped you do the grant writing and you've had a lot of jobs?
Oh, yeah.
For the career path that you're in now, which one of these do you feel like has pushed your level of your current employment?
Actually, it's a combination of the two because with a grant, you have to fill out the financial aspect. You have to be able to develop a budget. You have to be able to substantiate why you want to spend the money, where you're going to spend it, and why you think it's going to cost that much. On the flip side, you know, my English degree is not in literature. I love a good novel, but I don't teach literature. My degree is in technical communications, so really super sexy things like grant writing and manuals. So if you ever read those manuals, which I know some of you don't, I'm not going to get all gender specific on you, but you know, if you don't read those manuals, you know, it kind of breaks my heart because that's what I used to do as well. But with a grant, you have, whether it's a grant that takes 30-word narrative or a 3,000-word narrative, you have to be very specific and to the point and make that connection. And for me, having to do that in 30 or 300 words is much more difficult than if I had 3,000 to ramble on with. And so both of them play a very key part in trying to get those grants and those funders through my door.
All right, I want to thank everybody for coming today, but first I also want to thank Kristyne for her presentation today. I really hope that you appreciate what she had to say because to me the thoughts were very well organized and really gave you a good, clear definition of some of the things that you're going to encounter in your careers here. And so I think that you're really good comments there as far as humility and all the tools that you've used. Thank you again.
If you have any questions, come over to the Buchanan Center or get online. You'll be able to find me there. Thanks.